You know, I spent 10 years living in New Guinea as a missionary. My children were all born there. Great beginnings for them. And I even had 1 year as a student missionary before I went out as a regular missionary. And sometimes when you go out as a student missionary, you have your best experiences. So I was a junior at college, and an opportunity opened to go to New Guinea for a year, and I said, well, why will I not go to New Guinea? It's not that far from the eastern tip of Australia, even though it's 1,000 miles from where people live. But there's only a 200-mile bit of water between the tip of Australia and New Guinea. Yes, the Coral Sea is there, where a very famous battle was fought. But you know, New Guinea is the largest tropical island in the world. It's wide in the middle and it gets narrow like this on both ends. It's 1,000 miles long. It's a big island. And 500 miles wide in the center. And it has more than 600 languages. Not dialects, it has more than 600 languages. More languages in New Guinea than any other single country in the world. That's because people have traditionally lived in fear of each other. All you need is a piece of hair in New Guinea and you can work magic and kill somebody. Anyway, I was sent up into the mountain areas of New Guinea, but before I got up there, they said, we have an earlier assignment for you. It's a 3-month assignment on the coastal area. I said, okay, so I went down to the Papuan Gulf. And the president of the mission there called me in and he said, we heard that you like adventure. I said, I wouldn't be in New Guinea unless I was adventurous. The first 3 years I was in New Guinea, I worked among the cannibal people who would walk up to you, excuse me doing this, and they would go and lick their lips. And I would say to them, too tough, too tough. Don't even think about it. Too tough. Anyway, the president said, we have an assignment for you for 3 months. I said, okay, I'm anxious and ready. He said, well, don't be too hasty. I said, what is it? He said, well, if you look out across the ocean there, you can't really see it, but there's a small island out there. It's about 10 miles out. I said, okay. He said, it's populated just with lepers. I said, okay. I'm beginning to wonder what he's got in mind now. And he said, we're looking for somebody who will get close to the lepers. Well, I said, well, how close is close? Well, he said, it's easy to get somebody to go out and preach on Sabbath morning. We send the mission ship out. They preach the sermon and they run and jump back on the ship and come back to the mission station. I said, it sounds like a great idea to me. He said, well, we're looking for somebody that will spend time and get much closer to the lepers. I said, well, spell it out. How close is close? Well, he said, in our wildest dreams, we thought we might find somebody who's willing to hug a leper. I said, what? Hug a leper? I said, I don't want to wake up one morning and find a slight discoloration of skin here on my arm and watch my fingers and toes begin to be eaten away. Well, he said, you know, in the next room we have a physician waiting. We knew you would have questions. And he's waiting to explain to you the risks involved in leprosy. So I went into the room next door and there was the physician grinning at me like a Cheshire cat. He says, I believe you have some questions. I said, well, are you over there hugging the lepers? That's my first question. I said, have you even ever hugged a leper? He said, no. I said, well, of course I've got questions. I would like to get married one day and have a family. That's not an unnatural desire. He said, well, it's a question of hygiene. He said, if you run a deep bath, soak yourself in a deep bath, lather yourself all over with soap, go over to the island, hug your leper, come back again and jump back into the bath and lather yourself all over again, you will probably never catch leprosy. Oh, I said, I hate the word probably. I'm not going. If it's probable, I'm not going. I'm willing to sacrifice my life if necessary, if God calls for it, but I'm not willing to throw it away. He said, okay, let me start again. I said, what an excellent idea. He said, if you follow my directions, I can guarantee you will never get leprosy. I said, well, why didn't you say that in the first place? Did you have a little question about it in your own mind? And I notice you're not over there hugging the lepers. He said, trust me. I said, yes, I've heard those words before. Anyway, I said, okay, well, that's good enough for me. I'll go over and hopefully hug a leper. So the next Sabbath morning, I got on the mission ship. We sailed across to the island. I got off the mission ship, which is about 70 or 80 feet long. I turned behind me to see the captain and the crew hopefully following me, and they were all waving goodbye to me from the deck of the ship. Not one of them coming with me. I'm all alone on an island that is populated only with several hundred lepers. In the distance I could see a little thatched roofed village with some smoke coming up. So I started walking toward the village. I felt very much alone. I'd only gone a fraction of the way and I noticed a movement coming out of the village. It took me a while to realize what it was. It was a leper. He had no feet. He was actually walking on two stumps. He had no crutches. His legs had been eaten like this far up his leg. I couldn't understand at first what I was seeing because of the unusual gait that he had. Then as he got closer, I noticed that something was waving in the air. He had no hands, just two stumps. And he's waving them like this. I said, oh my goodness. He certainly looks a little more excited than I feel. And he's shouting something out. I couldn't hear it at first. I'd already picked up Pidgin English. It only took me 2 weeks to learn Pidgin. I took my first meeting in Pidgin after 2 weeks, and what I didn't know, I just made it up, and they seemed to get it. One of the older missionaries walked up to me and put his arm around me and he said, Brother Bill, we all knew that you would learn Pidgin very rapidly. I said, how did you know? He said, well, Pidgin is learned the most rapidly by those who don't handle English very well. I said, thank you very much. This guy is shouting out. As he got closer, and I could see these two stumps waving there as he came along like this, I heard what he was saying. Miamba maslong Papa. Miamba maslong Amamas, of course, is a term for praise you, God. I'm praising you, God. Long dis pelaman you selling me come long me pela. Because you finally sent the man. I'm looking around to see whom he is referring to. I am the man. He's thanking God because the mission has sent the man. So the mission has said something to these people. They have expectations. As he got closer to me, I wanted to turn and run. There's a skin condition in New Guinea which is called grilly. And in grilly, the skin flakes like a snake's skin. Your entire body is flaking. And as this guy got closer to me, I realized that his whole body is covered with flaking skin, this grilly condition. So here's a man with no feet, no hands, a dirty body with flaking skin, and he is excited to see me. He was like a steamroller. I just stood still. I couldn't move. I was in shock. Now I knew why the doctor hadn't gone over to hug a leper. And this guy just kept coming until he ran straight into me. I'm standing like a soldier at attention. And these two grilly stumps came around me. And I'm standing there like this. I was so ashamed of myself, I couldn't move. And this guy lifts up his head and he says, "Me ama mas tu mas Papa." Papa, of course, is God. "Me ama mas long you, Papa, you sell him his full amount of me. Come. Thank you for sending the man who will love us." And I'm standing there. So God, as he's in the habit of doing with me, comes along and goes, "Knock, knock. What is the matter with you?" I said, "A great deal." God says, "You know," and this is a lesson that I've learned over and over again, the same thing I learned with the woman on the street in Palm Springs. God says to me, "Has it ever occurred to you that he's hugging me, not you? You're just my instrument. It's not about you. Get yourself out of the way. It's all about me. You are called to reveal me. This is not a love that is natural to the human heart." I was so chastened. So God says to me, "Loosen up a bit." I said, "Okay." So I extracted my arms and I held them out and I hesitated again. God said, "It's okay. Give him a hug." So I wrapped my arms around that grilly body. And the guy broke into tears. You know what he said? He said, "It's the first human touch I've felt in 40 years. And you know who was healed, don't you? I was healed. I was healed. God opened my eyes to the fact that if I'm a willing vessel, his love can overcome even the most offensive sight because it's still a child of God. Anyway, we finished hugging each other and I thought, "Oh, I survived that and I've got to preach a sermon now," and I was getting ready to do that and I forgot that there's 200 more lepers wanting a hug yet. Took me more than an hour just to be hugged. I have never felt more unclean in my whole life than after I went through 200 lepers all giving me a hug and all praising God. I preached the shortest message. I gave them a 10-minute message and I fled back to the ship. Went back to the mission station, jumped in the bath, lathered myself all over, and God was gracious. I never got leprosy. What a God we have, huh? How's your faith this afternoon? God opened my eyes at that moment. It was a painful experience. I began to enjoy going over there in the end and hugging all the lepers because I lost the fear. And I began to realize that if you're on God's business, you don't have to fear. His hand of protection is upon you. It's more important to reveal the love of God than to be so concerned about your own personal welfare. So there's my little New Guinea experience for you this afternoon.